I do believe that we are now live. Welcome everyone, to another interesting topic we have today. This time, a very different topic than the last couple of weeks, thankfully, because we need a change of pace. Um, we're gonna wait. We're gonna try buying some time as people come into come into the video. But the big thing today we're gonna be discussing is fan fiction and writing and all that good stuff. And with me are two very wonderful people who are both very talented in that field. So I know I see the eye rolling. I'm trying to listen. Let me flatter you both so I can make fun of you later. No. I see how it is. I see how it is now.
Oh.
So you mind introducing yourselves to the audience?
Who first?
I don't care. One of you guys start first.
Okay. I will do it. I'm Charlie Knight. I'm an editor for independent and self-published authors. I'm an author myself, fan fiction and original fiction eventually. Gamer, nerd, all those things.
Definitely. I mean, Charlie, there's this one game you might have heard of it once before called Mass Effect. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that one before. It's very obscure.
No.
I know. No, never heard of it.
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah, foreign to me.
Yeah, strange title, strange game too. You know, the fans of that game are pretty out there. I don't know what to tell you. Little.
All right, that's enough.
Yeah, fair enough. I accept that.
You don't get to talk about it.
Okay, that's fine. I accept that. I'll go with that. And Astrid, mind introducing yourself?
Everyone, I'm Astrid. Most of you you know me either as Astrid or Seraph or both. I'm specifically more of an author of fan fiction and original fiction. I do have a book coming out September 22nd. Second. It is obviously original. I'm also an artist, gamer, and of course I'm a reader. Of course I have to be a reader. And so learner of languages.
So Astrid, I'm not sure if you know this, but I hate books. I despise books with all my passion and heart. You would never see me have a book anywhere in my house. Ever. Not a single one.
I'm going to tell that to the book I have of yours that I'm editing.
This is very true. Also, full disclosure, Charlie is they are editing my novel. Charlie, the next draft will come soon, I promise you. I'm just tinkering with it. I've been a little preoccupied.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere.
This is
I'll
valid.
be here.
Also, Astrid, I hear that you absolutely hate Naruto. That's like your least favorite thing in the world, I've been told.
The worst anime ever.
Just terrible.
You know.
Can't stand it at all. Just the worst. Almost as bad as like Evangelion, a show I've never discussed ever in any capacity whatsoever.
See, you guys are fine with the trash talking playfully. Don't talk about Mass Effect, even if I'm pretending I don't like it.
That's valid.
Don't talk trash.
valid reasoning so far, I would say. Now, we do have a few topics we want to discuss, but the first and foremost, I want to ask both of you, since I think honestly I should, full disclosure, I myself have written fan fiction in the past multiple times. I know I used to write fan fiction. I think the first fan fiction I ever wrote was actually when I was like 11 or 12. I was writing like Pokemon fan fiction in like little notebooks that wouldn't get published anywhere. I even went on fanfiction.net. I just hand wrote them while leaving like the town pool when I was a kid. This is like the level of like dorky. Not even 11. I think it was 9 even. Like the level of dorkiness I would imbue.
Yeah, I was writing fanfic before there was somewhere to post it, as far as I knew. I was 9. This was like the mid 90s. What would I do with it? I just wrote it down in my little notebooks. Yeah. Buffy fanfiction.
Oh, there you go. Actually, it's funny for me. Buffy fanfiction I got into more when I was in middle school, because like I remember when I was like a really young kid, I'm seeing people say drop the links. Well, I can't drop the links to like things that are in
The
notepads.
notebooks.
They're probably fermenting somewhere in my mom's house. We just got a super chat from Meow Nyan. Thank you for the super chat. You'll probably mention these down the road, but Sonic and Transformers are prime examples of fanfic/artists breaking into the industry, especially LGBTQ/fics moving into mainstream Transformers books. Thanks, IDW. That's very true. Transformers has been fantastic with representation, the comics specifically, where they really explore. Because, the idea of Transformers always has been that they're these robots in disguise, right? Like these big, titanic, transforming creatures. And robots don't really have physical organs at all. So how would a robot society even initially assign gender? Like even before, how would you assign gender at birth if they're all robots that look fairly the same? So in the concept of gender in the IDW comics is actually completely alien in Transformers society. And they don't really understand it till they come to Earth. And so to them, it's almost like it's very gender fluid. It's almost like they almost associate gender with a feeling, which is really interesting how they explore it. A, through the lens of an alien interpreting a human concept, and B, kind of putting a mirror to our preconceived notions of gender, especially in the, I think the IDW comics started like in the mid 2010s. I think that was what the big heyday of them. And so a lot of writers, especially trans writers, were able to explore gender through those narratives in a way that was really interesting. Have either of you read any of the Transformers comics, or am I just throwing like, yeah, I think Charlie, you have, right?
Yeah, not a ton, but I've read them. And my kid has some now, I think. But yeah.
No, yeah, some cool stuff, I think. So I guess the other part of that question too that Mionian asked. Actually, we'll hold off on talking about other writers breaking into from fan fiction into mainstream fiction, because that's kind of what this whole thing is essentially about. But I do want to bring up, I do want to pass the torch to both of you right now, because I feel like I can talk for endlessly and have talked endlessly. But I think you have a wealth of knowledge to share, and I don't want to hold off on you sharing that. Let's start with Charlie, then Astrid. What are your experiences as fan fiction writers, separate from your original fiction writing? Just like a brief overview of your experiences writing fan fiction or consuming fan fiction, and more importantly, any specific projects you worked on. We'll go into the specifics, difficulties and successes of those projects later, but just give us an overview of your focus of what you focused on in terms of shows you wrote fan fiction for, and how much you wrote, and whatever comes to mind.
So I mostly write Mass Effect fan fiction. I'm sure that will surprise absolutely everyone watching this.
Stunned.
So I have a Mass Effect fic that spans all three games in the original trilogy, plus the Andromeda and some extra stuff in between, and that is almost 3 million words long. I wrote that over the course of like 6 years. Just finished it in this past year. And then I did a crossover with Supernatural and Mass Effect, which was very weird but very fun. And I have a little bit of a Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West fanfic. So I mostly do video games that I then move into fanfic. I have a Dragon Age one that I want to write, so that's kind of more my realm than shows or movies. Yeah, that's most of my experience. And like I said, I think I've been writing it since I was 9. I wrote Buffy fanfiction by hand when I was a kid. Reading fanfiction, I mean, I will still stay up all night reading AO3 on my phone. Just because I'm a parent doesn't mean I'm a responsible adult. I mean, it's fanfic.
No, 100%.
It's necessary. So yeah, that's my experience.
Responsible adult. What mythology are we talking about here?
Really?
So Astrid, what about you?
For me, I'm like Charlie. I kind of typically stick with like one specific fandom when I'm writing my fan fiction. I've been writing Naruto fan fiction with the same characters for, oh god, 13, 14 years now. I've been writing, I've actually been writing fan fiction technically since 4th grade. But the story behind that is when I was in 4th grade, I was very into Star Trek and Ratchet and Clank. I started writing a Ratchet and Clank Star Trek Voyager crossover.
Oh, I love it.
But
Love
it
it.
last very long. One day in the middle of class, I looked absolute trash. I pick up the notebook, walk over to the trash can, threw it.
Oh my goodness.
I would absolutely read that.
Yeah, 100%.
Not
That
gonna lie.
sounds great. Especially Voyager, because they have someone that was the Borg and all that. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So as you were.
But when I was about 12, 13, I met someone on DeviantArt, RIP OG DeviantArt, that I started writing this fan fiction with my character. I would be absolutely surprised if anyone actually read my original work, but before Tsukiya had their name as Tsukiya, they were Taylor. And I'm not going to explain why. That's just what I had chosen for them. I didn't have a good name until about 6 years ago.
Now, Astrid, not to interrupt you, but give some of the audience may not be familiar with your particular work's characters and names. Can you give a little background briefly on? Because I feel like you're going to reference it throughout the stream. So, can you give the audience a little bit of a brief elevator pitch on background for what your fan fiction and original fiction is about?
My fan fiction is specifically I write original character fan fiction. I don't really focus much on the canon characters as much as I do my original characters. So Tsukiya, Hatake, they are my absolute baby. I love them to death. They are the focus of my stories, and it just follows their misadventures as an autistic and general neurodivergent ninja navigating the shinobi world with a father like Kakashi, that and then you've got Tsukiya, who's just trying not to be just like their father. So you follow in their misadventures. They end up becoming a Jinchuriki. No, I will not go into detail right this second. And then they have to deal with those misadventures as well. And also follows who later becomes their partner, Hiragi Morino, who is Ibiki's son. It is chaos.
It sounds that way. So let me ask a question too. I'm sorry, I cut you off there. I cut you off there. You finished your thought. I'm sorry.
It's just pure chaos, and I love every second of it. But also, just to squeeze this in, my favorite thing about it is making Ibiki deal with the shenanigans.
Yeah.
All of the
Valid. So
deal with it.
So here's a question I have for both of you, actually, and something you said, Astrid, made me think of this. It's, I think, really relevant. When writing fan fiction, a big thing becomes some authors kind of gravitate towards specific characters. Other authors gravitate towards the world of the fiction itself. So, for example, you used to see back in the day a lot of Star Trek fan fiction writers, for example, creating their OCs to exist on the Enterprise. And this was back during the 60s and 70s of the fanzine era, but pre-fanfiction.net. Other writers, of course, as we know, one of the more well-known authors in publishing over the last 20 years who started as a fan fiction writer would be Cassandra Clare, who herself started as writing Harry Potter fan fiction that drastically reinterpreted established characters. But again, certain fan fiction writers kind of gravitate towards characters, others gravitate towards the environments and the worlds. When you're working on fan fiction, is it the world that gets your attention or the characters that get your attention first? I know both obviously have a play a part, but what is it that draws you to it more? Playing in a sandbox or playing with the toys in the sandbox?
You want to go first, Astrid?
I think I think for me, it's I I don't know how to explain it. It's very much the world that I really enjoy messing with. But I think more for me, because of where I started with my fan fiction, it was I started it I gravitated towards certain characters, as I did with Kakashi and Ibiki and also Kakashi's father, Sakumo. I gravitated towards them and created my own characters, and now it's just like it's a big mess of both.
It sounds like a lot. It sounds like a fun mess though. Charlie, what do you think? Do you think it's more the world or characters that draw you in?
I'm definitely more of a character-driven person anyway. Like if I read a book or watch a movie and I hate the story, but there's a character or characters that I just love, I'm probably going to reread or rewatch that. I'll enjoy something just for the characters, even if the rest of it doesn't really mean as much to me. So my fanfic definitely gravitates in that direction, where like with the Mass Effect one, I picked a specific relationship that I like within the games and played around with the whole world and reshaped the games so that it centered around that relationship. That's definitely more where I lean to. I don't care what world they're in. I could do an AU and it wouldn't matter as long as I have my characters.
I hear you there. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm kind of the same way. I guess I should actually expose myself to the whole of the internet right now and talk about my experience with fan fiction. I'm realizing I've been just putting you guys in the spot and haven't done myself. Oh, wait, we have a super chat. I can delay that even further and expose myself a little bit later. Mystic Mind Analysis. Thank you for the super chat. I cut my proverbial teeth on My Little Pony fan fiction and want to write a full original novel. Any advice for maintaining inspiration for 30,000 words? Now, this is a little different than what we're going to be discussing later. We're going to be discussing kind of going from fan fiction writing into original fiction and how the two affect one another in terms of writing technique and style. But inspiration, I think, is a really good question. So, either Charlie or Astrid, do you want to answer that question first before I give my take? How do you maintain inspiration for that long of a project? Especially you, Charlie, how many words? 6 million, did you say, or 3 million?
3 million, and now I'm taking that relationship and putting it into an original fiction. So kind of like what this person is asking. I think you maintain inspiration by never letting go of the source. You know, just keep revisiting that source of your passion. If it's My Little Pony, go back to whatever inspired you and rewatch it. Keep getting yourself involved with it. Fandom is a big part of that too, because few things are more inspiring with fan fiction and things that come from fan fiction than the other people who love it. So that would just be my biggest piece of advice, is just never let go of the source of inspiration. Keep dipping back into that.
100% agree with that. Astrid, any other thoughts on that?
I have no idea what to say, but I definitely agree with that.
Hey, valid. I'm gonna second everything Charlie said, but I'm gonna also add that one possible thing too that might be inspiring. When I write, I listen to a lot of music. I have a whole Spotify playlist, a whole bunch of Spotify playlists that I kind of draw from when writing. What I think that does is it gives you almost like a hypnotic impact on your writing skill, where it's like certain sounds will then make you think, oh, that's my story. You know, whatever that sound might be. But again, I'm also very audiovisual in terms of my experiencing of the world. Like, so some people are more respond to words. Other people respond more to tactile sensation. Whatever it is that like you are most affected by in terms of sensory input, try to associate that sensory input with your writing. And I find that sometimes gets you in the headspace in some ways. That might be weird advice. I think it works better with audio and visual more than like say touch or scent. But if let's say your book has a lot of like lavender in it, lavender scent, I don't know. I'm spitballing. That's just an idea. I'm not sure how
Well,
effective it is.
I actually give this advice as an editor a lot in terms of like creating writing spaces and creating routines to let yourself keep writing, whether it's something you're listening to. Smell is actually a really big one for me. I have specific candles that I light when I'm writing.
Are you also collecting all the pumpkin spice candles or like the scented caramel? Like, no,
I don't like food candles. They freak me out.
Oh,
I don't like those.
I hate those too. They're terrible. I don't like them at all. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, whoever loser would want those.
I'll leave them all in the store for you. You can have them all.
I didn't say I'm getting them. You know. But like,
Yeah,
I mean, if I was. Anyway, we do have a second super chat as well. The guy, thank you for the super chat. I remember my high school years, I wrote a lot of Metroid and Zelda fanfiction. Part of me is glad nobody will ever read them. I'm kind of embarrassed. Well, that's the good thing about fanfiction. If you write them under a different name, like I did when I was in high school, no one will ever have to read them. Except for TV tropes, who put it on the recommended fanfiction list, and everyone read it. But thankfully, not under my name. It's a different name, different username. Very different username. So I'm not.
Yeah, if you never admit to your AO3 name, no one will ever know any of it was you. Yeah. So it's totally anonymous. It's great. It's
totally different. That's a good thing. That actually is a good thing about writing fan fiction. I think anonymity is important in the writing process because it liberates you to write things that you might be unsure about writing under your. Like, I mean, here's the thing also. Like, unfortunately, because of the nature of the beast, my face is now all over my YouTube channel. Anonymity went out the door for me a while ago. But and before that, my writing and all that, but when I was younger, anonymity allowed me to experiment with the craft in ways that allowed me to develop as a writer. And I'll tell you some fandoms I wrote for, fanfictions for. I wrote for Pokemon, I wrote for Evangelion, I wrote for... Actually, one time in college, I did write a My Little Pony fanfiction without ever having watched My Little Pony. And I still have no interest in ever watching it. I'm not... It just isn't something that gets me. It's not my thing. But I still wrote fanfiction for it. And that was a really interesting exercise because you had to play by a new sandbox that you didn't really follow the rules with all that well, and you had to kind of go, okay, how do I grapple with this? How do I go from there? Another one was Sailor Moon, but I personally am a big Sailor Moon nerd. So, Rocat, thank you for joining as a member. That is fantastic. I will, that is so excellent. If anyone wants to join as a member, you absolutely can. You get several perks. Such as Discord access and everything like that. It's fantastic. And you help me do what I do. Okay, so let's move on to the next big topic of discussion I really want to discuss. Because obviously you are both extremely talented writers with lots of skills. And while I have you on here and you're tolerating my questions, I might as well pick both of your brains at once. What is the difference between a retelling or reimagining and a fan fiction? Because a big popular trend in publishing right now appears to be reimaginings. Like I know Song of Achilles a few years ago was a big success. The Webtoons is lore, Olympus lore, whatever it is. That's basically fan fiction to the layman. It's a fan written story about a pre-existing story, that being Greek mythology. Dante's Inferno, in a lot of ways, is a reimagining of the stories of hell. Paradise Lost, same thing with the Bible. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, that's a reimagining of Pride and Prejudice with zombies. These are just well-known examples that everyone would get. And I'm sure we're going to go down the list, we'll find more and more like less well known but probably better examples than what I'm giving right now. How would you differentiate a reimagining from fan fiction? And is there really a narrow border between the two?
Do you mind if I? Do you want to go, Astrid? Are you okay?
You are perfectly good. I'm thinking.
Okay. I just talked about this recently on TikTok, so it's fresh in my mind. I think of retellings versus fan fiction the same way that I think of legalized devil's lettuce, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yes.
Same thing. We all know what you're doing. You're still getting the same effect from it, but it's legal, which is big.
Yeah, huge.
And 2, it's considered more respectable. And then 3, because it's legal, you can dance closer to the line of the original source. So really the biggest difference between them comes back to the fact that you can't call something a retelling or a reimagining unless the source is in the public domain, which then lets you get super, super close, like Song of Achilles used the same character names and used very specific stories, but got to call it original fiction because it's a retelling, not fan fiction because it was in the public domain.
Now that question too I have to ask. Since you're talking about public domain, and this is more of a special interest for mine, not necessarily like a legitimate like question, but there's been a recent trend of horror movies being made based on public domain characters like Winnie the Pooh, who have just fallen, who like they're like chomping at the bit to put into a scary slasher film with like chainsaws and like hooks. Listen, you know who I am. You know I'm going to this question eventually. Would, let's say, the cinematic masterpiece known as Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey count as fan fiction?
It's a reimagining.
There we go.
Or retelling, whichever way you want to phrase that. But I mean, yeah, the reimaginings and retellings are still fan fiction. They're a type of fan fiction. They just happen to be a legalized type. Like legalized devil's cabbage is still the devil's cabbage. It's just legalized.
This is valid. And make me want to go grocery shopping for this.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right.
So to speak, just innocent, wholesome shopping. That's all. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Need milk and bread, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gummy worms, all the essentials. There we go. Anyway, I would never do that while streaming though, but that'd be dangerous. I mean, I say dumb stuff already on stream. I can't imagine the dumb stuff I'd say. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Astrid, any thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, the biggest difference between a reimagining and fan fiction is it legal? Is it in the public domain? Mm-hmm. But also, I think, like, you just take, like, I actually know that's still basically fan fiction. Never mind. My brain was like, okay.
Hey, that's valid. That's valid. And if anything comes to mind later, we can always go back to this topic as well if something else occurs. But what will not happen is I'm not going to let you talk for the next 5 seconds because we just got a new super chat. Will, thank you for the super chat. Okay. I used to write Star Wars parody fan fiction featuring... Oh, okay. Okay, then. Featuring Honey Boo Boo and the Teletubbies. I got the idea to make these from SMG4. SMG. Why do I feel like that's something... Shin Megami Tensei. No, that's not Shin Megami Tensei. SMG4.
I'm bad at acronyms. I can't help you. I'm sorry.
I'm drawing a blank of what you're referring to there. It's something obvious I'm going to hit myself for afterward. I guarantee. And just recently I found some flash drive. I just found some flash drive containing some of them. Okay, it's cool. That is awesome. I mean, honestly, some of those like wild fan fiction ideas, they seem like ludicrous when you explain them. But
they work.
Yeah, they work. If you piece the pieces together, it's really fun. And again, I used the example before of like playing with toys in like in like in a sandbox. Well, sometimes some of the best parts of playing with Super Mario Galaxy 4, it exists. If it existed, that's not Super Mario Galaxy 4. There's only 2 Super Mario Galaxy games. What do you take me for? Chat trying to mess with me. Anyway, some of the fun of it was taking like different toys and smashing together in your toy box. Like for example, some people play with Barbies. Well, what if you also had a Godzilla toy next to you, and instead of Ken, Barbie went out with Godzilla, or fought Godzilla and then won. You know, doesn't matter what it is. You're playing with the toys in ways that are interesting. And quite frankly, I'm not trying to say that you should write a Barbie fan fiction where Barbie fights Godzilla. I'm
Too
not
bad.
saying
I'm
at all,
gonna.
but
They are gonna do that.
But I kind of want that actually. If you
Yeah.
write that, send it my way. Or a romance story between Barbie and Godzilla. That's also valid.
We both know that's the path it's gonna take.
Why not
We
both?
Yeah, we do. We both know. Well, let me be fair. We both know that's the path it should take. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Good old wholesome, in our good old Christian fan fiction server, we want more Barbie and Godzilla fan fiction. Anyway, but would we be like Margot Robbie, Barbie, whatever? Your dealer's choice. Dealer's choice.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, that's one question right there. I think we should have asked, because there's a whole market for reimaginings. But as many of us know, there is a taboo in mainstream publishing for fan fiction. That being, you can get sued if you just happen to write fan fiction and try publishing it. I think we discussed this before chat, that there's a tendency now for people to sell fan fiction, like binded fan fiction in like a physical volume. What are your thoughts on that?
Ballsy.
Yeah, right? Just a bit.
I would find my Naruto fanfiction, but I wouldn't sell it. I just want to like hold my Naruto fanfiction in my hand and just go, my baby.
Exactly. No, I hear that. It would be great, because I mean that's the joy of any writing process, isn't it? Holding the physical copy. I mean, Charlie, it might be hard for you to hold the physical copy of your fanfiction, considering it may be heavy enough to crush anything underneath it. It may be considered a deadly weapon if you bound that.
I'd have to bind it in like 14 volumes at least.
Yeah. Your work is massive. But that being said, that's sometimes part of the joy of the writing process. But yeah, and there was a while back there was a controversy I was hearing about. This deals with an unofficial novelization of a work. I believe it was one of the Halloween movies, like the Michael Myers Halloween movies. Someone wrote an unofficial novelization of one of the movies, which, okay, if it's going on AO3 or something like that, that's not really a story, but he tried selling it on Amazon through the self-publishing system. And there was a whole affair because all the rights owners for Halloween were like, you would think, oh, it'd be one guy who comes in and like takes it off. But like apparently there were several different rights holders who were all go, and it took a while for them to sort everything out. So that was live on Amazon for like a few weeks, just collecting orders and stuff like that. It's interesting sometimes how like the legal boundaries with fan fiction can be so strange. And I think the rights owners all agreed that they wanted it down, but they just couldn't get the position in the right way fast enough for it to go down immediately. And it stinks because someone who doesn't know about the resources with fan fiction or publishing it on AO3 or something like that, how do they get their work out there? Well, they have to do research. They have to know what they're doing. But, it was unfortunate. It was a sad situation. But and I think the person also probably should have done a little more research before just putting their work on Amazon. But, and it didn't sound like they meant to, like, exploit anyone. They just kind of did it without thinking things through. And people got really heated about it, we'll say. But anyway, moving on to a different angle of things. So why is there sometimes a stigma with fan fiction? Is there any particular authors who have hounded writers for fan fiction and maybe force people to make entire rule changes for fanfiction.net in the process of doing this?
I mean,
think
yeah,
we all
there's-
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't. Is there any specific author who we are all thinking of that I would like you to mention by name before I do?
And Rice definitely went after authors. Now, I was too young for that, but I have heard the horror stories of it.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Astrid, you might be a little too young to have gone into the whole world of Anne Rice suing fan fiction writers for writing fan fiction.
Yeah.
Actually, Charlie,
Ow.
I guess we're kind of too young for that too. I think we got in the tail end of that whole discourse.
Yeah, I think the only reason that like I was familiar with it as a kid is because I was like an avid reader and writer like early enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were definitely on the tail end of it, but it's still pretty infamous.
Oh yeah.
It just
Mm-hmm. And it's funny too because I think Anne Rice has all of the her work has all of the components of work that usually gets fanfiction written about it. We were discussing before about the world versus the characters. Well, the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles I think has both. There are some iconic characters. There's a great world, really great queer rep. A lot of fanfiction, by the way, is very gay. A lot of it, an extreme amount of it, which is as it should be, because a lot of young queer audiences use fan fiction as a way to explore themselves, explore representation, in several different ways. Obviously, I mean, everyone here is obviously the most straight and cis people in the world. We are all like really just like I can't even continue that joke. That's a bad joke even for me on my own, let alone the collective of everyone here. Why do you think fan fiction is really appealing to queer audiences in general? Both in terms of why a lot of fan fiction writers happen to not be straight or cis, and why maybe they turn to fan fiction as a way of exploring identity through their writing. And of course, there's the discussion of it. I'll stop talking. I'll let you guys respond to that one.
Oh, I mean, I think you were right in that it allows for experimentation. And like we said earlier, you can be anonymous. So you can play around with things like that without anyone ever knowing that you're doing it. I think a lot of it is also, too, that there just isn't a lot of queer representation out there. So if you want to see yourself in something or people like you in something, you have to write it. If you, that's, it's not going to get made any other way with people like you. And fan fiction, again, allows you to do that in a space that encourages representation, encourages anonymity. So it feels safer.
Agreed. Before we actually, I am seeing something in comments that I want to respond to before we continue with this question, because Astrid, I know you're going to have your response as well, but I just want to respond to one thing real quick. I'm seeing people in comments saying, AO3 has a Vampire Chronicle page. Please don't spread misinformation. Anne Rice didn't sue. She just sent cease and desists. But I'm seeing variants of the same thought. What you have to understand is this. That's now. That's not 20 years ago when there were like actual and cease and desists can lead to being sued also. Let's also be fair about that. It's not misinformation. It's just simply now it's different than when it was 20, 25 years ago. That's like a big difference there. I don't want to
in the 90s, in the 90s, threats were made that she would sue, that there was legal action. So it's not incorrect to say that she didn't sue, but she threatened to take it to that point. That's what was happening in the 90s.
And that had ramifications for decades after the fact. Like, AO3 has made decisions in part because Anne Rice threatened to sue fanfiction writers for writing fanfictions on their blogs, basically. Like, the Anne Rice situation has had lasting impacts on all of this. On AO3, you can. Okay, now I'm seeing in comments that's saying, "Oh no, the misinformation thing was a commenter saying that not even AO3 can post Anne Rice fics." Okay, that makes more sense.
Oh.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah. I'm keeping an eye on the chat, but I think I missed that part of it. No problem. It's all good. I think it was a series of miscommunications, but it's worth mentioning how important the Anne Rice situation was. Anyway, that being said, Astrid, back to the original question. I'm sorry. Why do you think, to remind you what the question was, why do you think queer audiences are drawn to writing fan fiction based on these other worlds, potentially?
I would say a lot of it does deal with exploration. Now, when I started writing my Naruto fan fiction 15 years ago, I had no idea exactly what queer, gay, trans, or even asexual, because I think we've got at least 2 asexuals in here. I had no idea what any of that was, but I did see a lot of that other stories, especially like because I don't really write romance. I am first and foremost, I am absolutely terrible at writing relationships. I mean, I think my best relationship that I've written are my gay grandpas, Sari and Lysander, and that's about it. Like, and then look at like my main characters in a lot of my stories, they only have like one parent, and the other one's an absolute piece of trash. I don't know how I did that because I have 2 loving parents who have been happily married for 25 years, and yet I can't write I can't write a decent relationship. But, all of that, like, when I was writing, like, I didn't see a lot of stuff on TV or in writing where there wasn't a relationship. And I always felt weird about it because I'm like, well, I just don't understand how to write a relationship. So that's why I was particularly drawn to it. Granted, I just wanted to write. I know, as we mentioned, a lot of it is, you're trying, you see some ideas in whatever you're fixing to write a fan fiction about. You see the ideas and you're like, hey, these are kind of cool ideas. What if this happened? One of the most common narratives I can think of is
Actually, I think you're kind of having a little trouble there. I think we're losing Astrid there.
Where did I get cut off?
Okay.
Excuse me. Can you hear me still?
We can hear you now. You're good. You're good.
Okay. I know my internet connection is really iffy ever since the power went out earlier.
Mm-hmm. You're breaking up again.
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you are coming in a little crunchy. You're a little crunchy there, a little scuff.
I know the all for day. Let me check something on.
Okay. So.
Quick.
Okay, so while you're getting that worked out, so while you're getting that worked out, we're just gonna keep moving on. I'm sure it'll be fixed once you get back. We'll come back to. So Astrid, we'll get back to you in a second. Don't worry about a thing. I hope they get the internet figured out. So So one thing I think we should do is discuss for a second. One thing I want to bring up too, that's a little more complicated, I feel, is the idea of like how fan fiction can sometimes explore some really dark themes. Oh, Astrid, can you say something? Anything at all?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Perfect. Excellent. You're good.
So maybe it was just a momentary cut.
Oh no, never mind. It's Scuff. Scuff is back. I'm sorry, Astrid. Maybe try getting into a corded computer as you keep coming back and forth. Maybe rejoin on a computer hooked up to the internet. Do you have any computers hooked up to the internet potentially, or more directly?
I'm trying to get Discord to actually load on my computer.
Okay, for some reason you now you sound perfect. Whatever you're doing is working.
I don't know.
Whatever you're doing right now is working. All right. Well, let's.
Every time you say it's working, it stops working.
Crud, I should really just stop saying things that are nice and excited and happy. All right, well, let's get back to all that in a second. I want to bring up another question right now. Because obviously this whole stream is partially about fan fiction, but also about original writing.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say, because obviously both of you have written both fan fiction and original fiction, what are some of the differences between writing original fiction and writing fan fiction, just from the writer's perspective?
When there's honestly a lot less pressure with fan fiction. You're not focused on absolutely every aspect of the book. Like we said, you can take characters and or the world and use them. Whereas in original fiction, you have to create absolutely every aspect of it. It's all on you. There's also more pressure with original fiction because, especially if you do plan to publish it, you're dealing, and especially if you plan to self-publish it, you're dealing with things like costs, and then you're dealing with whether you're going to get a return on your investment with what you spend on, even if just an editor and cover art and all of those things, they build up so quickly. You don't have to worry about any of that with fan fiction. So you can write, what was it? Honey Boo Boo, My Little Pony. Like, you can take completely wild things and put them together and experiment with them with very, very little risk. And there's something incredibly freeing about that. Not even just that it's easier. I wouldn't say that it's easier to write fan fiction. It's just a lot. It's more freeing. It's just, there aren't as many boundaries or restrictions, and there's not so much that you have to worry about. Like, you can have more fun with it, honestly. It's fun.
100% agree with that. Yeah, entirely. The risk on investment's a big thing, too.
Yeah.
Because how many... So obviously, Charlie, you have more experience with this than any of us do. What is... In terms of working with writers, in terms of... Because you also are obviously part of that publishing process. Mm-hmm. What are some costs that an author maybe wouldn't know going in, that indie publishing specifically? Because obviously, I think we should explain this too, because not everyone in the audience are necessarily writers.
Sure.
An indie writer is someone who handles all the components of publishing themselves. So, Astrid, looks like they're reloading, so we should be good once that hopefully wraps up. So that means cover art. That means editing. That means bookbinding. That means... of course, marketing, ISBN numbers, all that stuff. Whereas formatting, yeah, exactly. Whereas
software to do formatting, yeah,
exactly. Whereas, say, someone who's traditionally published through an agent, they get an agent, the agent gets them a publisher, the publisher gets them published, and the money in theory flows down. It flows through the publisher to the editor, to the agent, and then finally to the writer. No upfront costs.
Unless they want it. Sometimes people choose to hire an editor before, but yeah, there shouldn't be unless that's by choice.
Mm-hmm.
So
precisely. So obviously there's a lot more risk, both for the
Yeah.
publisher for the publisher if you choose to traditionally publish, and for the author if you choose to self-publish.
Hmm.
So I guess my question there becomes ultimately, obviously fan fiction, it's a little safer. There's less risk.
Hmm.
You can do more wild things. But there's definitely commonalities between writing fan fiction and writing original fiction. So before we discuss how fan fiction can help, if you want to say write original fiction, how fan fiction can help be a good practice ground, be a good experience zone. Because I hate to say like, oh, it's practice for real writing, quote unquote, because it's all real writing. All of it is.
Right.
It's all a challenge. But
Hmm.
if you want to make the jump to original fiction, what are some crossover elements that kind of play in both worlds?
I mean, first of all, if you are going from fan fiction to original fiction, especially if you are taking a fan fiction and then readapting it into something original, which is something we've talked about here a few times, the legal aspect needs to be at like the very front of your mind the whole time. It cannot resemble the source material, and it cannot resemble your fan fiction.
What was it? Honey Boo Boo.
Astrid. Earphones, earbuds. You need earbuds. We're getting feedback
Sorry.
on it. No.
Sorry, I paused the stream because that's what I had on my laptop. Can y'all hear me better?
Yes, now it's
Yes.
perfect. Now it's excellent.
Okay, I finally got it to load up on my computer.
Thank God. Good.
My
Excellent.
apologies.
No, don't worry about a thing.
No worries.
Listen, Astrid, there's a great New Jersey saying that's not really New Jerseyan at all, but we say it a lot here. Shit happens.
Yeah, we say that down here in the South too, so you know.
That works. I guess it's not really New Jersey then, is it? You're stealing my thunder here for my posturing about New Jersey life. Anyway. So I guess that extends to you as well. Actually, since you've been like in Scuffland for the last like 5 minutes, I'll extend the question to you as well. What are some crossover components do you think that in terms of writing original fiction versus writing fan fiction
Fanfic.
that you think are common skills, common talents you might need, common techniques that apply to both original fiction?
One of like first thing that comes to mind is like your basics for building a story, you know, dialogue and prose. A lot of what I do, like, you know, I spent most of my teen years writing fan fiction, and I was building like how to write my prose and like practicing my dialogue. I still don't know which one I'm better at. I'm probably better at prose in general. And like that is obviously very important writing skills that you need to be able to do that. And yeah, my train of thought just completely derailed.
That's valid.
Well, I was gonna say, as an editor, like, I know you kind of tried not to call it practice, but I will regularly recommend to my clients who have not written fan fiction that be something they practice.
Yeah, a lot of it is practice.
Indeed.
It's also one of the unique things about fanfic as a genre is that it is incredibly character driven, and it is very, very, very dialogue heavy. So whenever you write fan fiction, whatever fandom you're writing in, whether or not you are focusing on whether or not you took the world from the original source or you took characters from the original source, you are going to develop skills in character development and in writing dialogue. Like Astrid said, those have to be there for fan fiction, and then they translate really, really, really nicely into original fiction.
100%.
It's great practice.
100%. Yeah, I agree with all that. I'd say another cool thing too is with world building specifically as well.
Yeah.
Because world building is a tough thing for a lot of people to work on. Especially if you're writing science fiction, fantasy, horror, even historical fiction. Oh, not even, especially historical fiction, I'd say. Actually, speaking of historical fiction, here's a question for you too, as well. Historical fiction kind of is a lot like fan fiction in a lot of ways, because you're taking a pre-established setting and you're writing a story in that setting. So unlike, let's say, fantasy writing, which is original fantasy writing, which is usually a whole world created from like scratch, or sci-fi, or even some horror, a Western takes place in a period of time. And I think, like with fanfiction writing, the audience can pick up on fakeness, can pick up on disconnect. So you look at, say, I would say,
Give me a second.
of course.
Oh no, I'm like, if you hear feedback, I'm sorry. I just refreshed my YouTube page so I can continue to see the.
I got you. It's all good. It's all good.
Okay. It's Paul.
No. Yeah. So, and I feel like there are a couple questions here regarding a certain author who wrote fan fiction, who I've discussed in the past. So I will vague respond to that. I'm not gonna talk about Lily Orchard in the stream. I'm sorry, we're not gonna do that. But I will talk about a topic that's relevant to that, to satisfy you people asking it in the comments. What are your opinions on fan fiction that deal with taboo subjects?
Like, in terms of what? Because there's always fiction that deals with taboo subjects. Sometimes it's glorified, sometimes it's actually discussed. Sometimes, like, I think that's a really broad question.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very. I was like, that's gonna need to narrow it down a little bit.
Okay, so I'll narrow it down a little bit, because obviously fan fiction has dealt with cultural taboos at different points. Like, for example, there's a period in time where queer fiction was a cultural taboo. Well, that is as thankfully shifted, but there was a period in the 80s and 90s where that was the case, especially. But I would say, yeah, because I do not want to talk about Stockholm. I know people have mentioned that in other places. We're not mentioning that here at all. We're not. We're just not. Sorry. Beyond this mention, we're not. But certain fan fiction have dealt with some darker topics that have given it something of reputation in some circles. I would say an example of that could be, again, trigger warning for certain topics, but incest, dealing with assault, dealing with extreme violence, or more extreme other things as well, which I won't mention here for YouTube guidelines banning it. AO3 does have tags for very extreme topics for this reason. So you have a warning to say, hey, this deals with some real extreme taboos. Don't read it if you don't want to see this, or even worse, if you find it deeply upsetting. Or just don't want to see it because it's upsetting. I feel like fan fiction is a great exercise for some people who write dark fiction to explore dark topics in a way that's... And a lot of writers are young who write fan fiction, so they may not have the tools available to them to discuss these topics with the maturity someone our age would discuss them. And obviously I love horror, I love dark fiction, so for me I find any story exploring dark topics very interesting. But there are people who say that, especially with fanfiction.net, that they shouldn't host extreme fiction. What are your opinions on that? Do you think there should be more restrictions on some topics that are discussed on fanfiction.net, or do you feel like there's a justification for mostly any story, provided it's not exploitative in a really upsetting way, or hurts a real person in the process?
I mean, I think it's a hard line to draw and to figure out where you're drawing it. I think I'm not on fanfiction.net anymore, so I can't speak if this is the way that they're doing things. But if there is any format where people are able to write whatever they want, no matter how extreme, no matter the taboo, no matter what lines they cross, no matter what harm they could cause, and there's no like content warning, there's no tags, there's no way for the site administrators to be like, even just to be like, hey, if you're under 18, don't go here. But then obviously to make other notes if more extreme things are happening. If that exists, that's not okay. There needs to be some shouldering of responsibilities for whomever is hosting whatever. If you, Ant, you're one of my most favorite people in the world, but if you did one of these streams and you let someone go wild on here and say horrible things, you and I would have a problem. I'd come to New Jersey and we would deal with it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I'm not sure if I'd hate that experience or be happy to have you in New Jersey, though. That's the thing.
A little of both.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's there is some responsibility on the shoulders of the host, whatever that may be. I think there has to be. Otherwise, we all know exactly what people are gonna do. We've seen them do it on places like Twitter. Like, you know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, be extreme in one way or the other in a way that's hurtful to people in general. Astrid, any thoughts on that as well, or?
I mean, as someone who has a severe fear of like certain types of gore, I don't think that like people shouldn't post it, but I do agree that there needs to be like the AO3 tags. You know, I don't like the AO3 tags, some CWs and TWs in the text, which reminds me I need to check all my Naruto fanfictions because I might have some triggers that I didn't realize I had. Just really, like, to me they're small, but to someone else it might not be. But that ADHD thought just ping ponged.
It's all good.
Like the TWs, CWs, and the AO3 tags, you know, those are very important things to have. But if you take, like, as we're talking about it, like the extremes that, especially like what we see on Twitter, there needs to be moderation on some of that, especially.
Yeah. 100%. I think it's exactly the same in original fiction too, though. We can all write we can write and publish whatever we want, and that's, you know, our rights, especially if we are self-publishing it. But if someone writes something really extreme, really taboo, really harmful, and then goes ahead and publish it without content warnings, without any of those things, then they also have to accept the backlash for having done that. You can say and write and do basically whatever you want, but you also have to choose to respect your audience or face what your audience is going to do in response.
I got this nice little list of CWs in my fanfiction on like the first couple pages for a reason.
That's valid. And that actually brings me to another question too. That I think one thing I'm noticing is because a lot of people who used to write fan fiction are now self-publishing, we're seeing a lot of elements of the fan fiction publishing format kind of going into mainstream publishing as well. One of those that I'm noticing is over the last several years has been listing trigger warnings and content warnings in the beginning of books. I feel like we all are in the same singular mindset about this. That's a good thing, right? That's a very positive development, I feel. I feel like I don't even need to ask the question because I know the answer already. Yeah, it's a great thing. I think it's fantastic that we're able to kind of, because it clearly works, right? It works on AO3 and fanfiction.net. Maybe not fanfiction.net. I don't know how that's.
I haven't been on fanfic for years, so I wouldn't know how that works.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that their archives are all
Yeah.
that successful. But But AO3 at least, I know for a fact, does have all those elements. And I think it really works there as a great way of warning audiences and drawing a certain audience in, because certain people need to experience these topics. And one thing I think we discussed earlier to an extent, and you can tell me I'm dead wrong if you think so. Someone who's dealt with like traumas and pains in their lives, fan fiction was a great place to explore that pain in a healthy outlet.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, if I published this under my name, it would be torn to shreds. It was like, oh, it's terrible, whatever, yada 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 yada. But with fan fiction, you're able to go, okay, here's some taboos, here's some unpleasant discussions. It's congregated into its special bubble with the right tags, with the right centering of ideas, and you're able to get it out get that phrased, right? You're able to find the words for these difficult topics, and you're able to get a response on that too.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing too with fanfiction, it's so great. You get a lot of response very quickly. So, in terms of feedback, I think fanfiction is great because you are able to get feedback from any random person online, which can be a bad thing too in some cases. But I think fanfiction audiences tend to be a little more invested than, say, Twitter randos, for example. And I think because of that, you're able to. I just saw a comment that just threw off my train of thought just now entirely. I just saw it pop up. I just glanced over and I saw some people don't tag certain things, and you get a ton of foot fetish jump scares, which jump scared me reading it, and now I'm thrown off.
I feel jump scared right now. Thanks.
Thank you for that. That really threw off my train of thought there. Yeah, I'm so sorry. That really threw me off right there. So let's
fine.
Let's get back onto some tract.
Yeah.
So obviously experimenting with concept styles. Here's a question for all of you. What do you think about the idea of, say, like songfics and stuff like that? Back in the old day, you used to really play with formatting of fan fiction as well.
Oh my god, I forgot about songfics.
Right?
I never heard of this.
Yeah, oh my god.
What?
Astrid.
Oh,
Oh no, I feel old now.
It's y'all.
All right,
No.
Astrid. I'm gonna explain this concept to you. So back in the day, oh god, I feel like a boomer already saying that.
I'm sorry. I just aged both y'all.
God, my back just started hurting so much worse. Oh,
Hey, Charlie, you get your AARP letter in the mail yet? I think I need
yeah,
to.
really. Oh,
Okay.
Funny story on that.
What?
It was like the ARP thing that just like, I know it's completely off topic, but it's hilarious, and I want y'all to expect it in that time frame. A couple months ago, my dad was about to turn 50, and I don't even think they waited until his birthday to send out mail saying, hey, maybe you should sign up for AARP 50.
I literally get AARP letters every single month.
You're in your 30s!
Because the previous owners were in their 60s, and they think I'm them.
Oh, no.
But they use my name.
Yeah.
So they knew someone moved. They just assumed it was another person in their 60s. Anyway, we have a super chat. Will, thank you for the super chat. What are your thoughts on ABO, which I assume are Alpha, Beta, Omega? So the Omegaverse fix. Before I explain song fix, I'll leave that up to you all. What do you think about Omegaverse fix?
I don't know what that is.
Oh my goodness.
okay.
Oh
Well,
my
that's on
goodness.
you.
Yeah.
That's not an age thing. Look it up on AO3 and have fun.
I'm scared.
You should be.
My thoughts are always in like whatever, unless it's harmful, is that I don't yuck anybody's yum. Whatever floats your boat. I don't write Omegaverse. I have edited a number of Omegaverse stories, and I've rather enjoyed them. I think it's fun. I think it's great. I think
Or
people do a
no,
lot of
they're trying
creative stuff with it. What's that?
I think the chat's getting ready to explain Omegaverse.
Oh, they will. They'll explain it all to you. Don't worry. It's like in Indiana Jones when they open up the Ark of the Covenant and it's like all the ghost spirits come out and melt people's
Yeah.
faces.
It's extremely odd to hear a fanfic writer and reader not know what Omegaverse is. That is
I don't actually read
wild.
fiction. So that's
Oh, okay.
what it is that I don't actually. I'm the weirdo who doesn't read fan fiction. I just write. I will definitely, if I know the writer very well, I might read it. But chances are, the last fan fiction story I read, I'm sorry, it was Harry Potter related. My best friend wrote a Harry Potter Doctor Who crossover, and I did enjoy that. Unfortunately, she did stop once like all the stuff about J.K. Rowling came out.
Yeah.
So she stopped writing the Harry Potter fan fictions. But it was I liked that. I think it was called Luna Who, and it was this was like years ago. But that's like the last time I've actually read fan fiction.
Yeah. Omegaverse is big, and Omegaverse, I would argue that that's one of the things from fan fiction, probably originated in fan fiction, that has crossed over into original fiction, maybe more than anything else.
100% agree.
A decade ago, that would have been just like exclusively the only place you could find Omegaverse was on AO3. Now, that's like a mainstream thing.
You can
which
find
I
it in
love.
bookstores even, I would say.
Yeah, I love that something fanfic has become like cool for everybody to read. Like now we don't have to hide under the covers at 3 a.m. and read it. Like,
oh yeah, no.
read it when we want to.
And like, here's the thing. I will never kink shame anyone. I will say I don't get it. I will say it very particularly. But I'm not gonna make you feel bad about it. I'm saying I don't get it, but like, hey, good on you, man. Whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not someone who can write ABO, but I great. Have fun.
Have fun. That's if I have to say anything is I'm with y'all, whatever boats your float.
I'm seeing a follow-up super chat from Will. Thank you again. This is fantastic. It's debunked wolf science that people think is real. Yeah, so the alpha beta thing originated from like wolf packs being studied and studied, quote unquote. But then the same scientists did the study again and realized they were just totally off basis. But a lot of writers went, well, wouldn't that be cool if we take that and then rearrange it in a way and make stories around it? And
yeah, it's the fantasy aspect of wolf life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be like saying, you know, I think it's just like we make up stories about elf societies. We made up stories about wolf societies. We personalize them.
It's no weirder than Clan of the Cave Bear, and that was a big hit in the 80s. I'm sure it's another one.
I forgot about that.
That's another book you haven't heard about in years, I'm sure. I'll find all the outdated references that my mom is very familiar with over the course of history.
I'm still stuck on the fact that you reminded me songfics exist.
Yes.
I totally forgot that was a thing.
So Astrid, for a while, one of the most popular types of fan fiction were fanfics that were half song lyrics and half fan fiction. But it would all be like well-known songs. Like it was the equivalent of AMVs in the fan fiction world. So you get a ton, and I mean like a metric ton, of Linkin Park and 3 Days Grace, Evanescence,
Coldplay. Why was there so much Coldplay?
So much Coldplay, actually.
So much Coldplay.
My Chemical Romance was a big one. Basically, any 2000s emo / slightly alternative metal band had like 1,000 songs, but never like. And like, I still love half of those songs. I would be lying if I said otherwise, but like, you would never.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Linkin Park and Evanescence and 3 Days Grace. I grew up on them, so.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. But like, you would never get like a David Bowie song with like a songfic. You'd never get like anything pre 2000s. It would have to be like
Well, it was all also very like emo and angsty. Like that was part of the
Yeah.
deal.
Okay,
You know,
actually, that's not true. Nirvana sometimes crept in, but I feel that overlapped with. I feel that overlaps with the 2000s edge.
That's what my brother would do. My brother is very much into Nirvana, and that sounds like something he would add to his fanfics.
Well, the thing is, Nirvana is great. I would be lying if I said otherwise. I see Charlie's kind of like raising an eyebrow. I'm not sure if you.
Oh no, I'm with you.
Oh, good. I was gonna say, like, make fun of my Nirvanas.
No.
My spouse
with
makes
you.
fun of me for that, but that's a different
Yeah.
story.
Mine too.
Oh God, what if our spouses don't know what they're doing?
They don't know anything.
They know nothing. They know nothing.
That's
Yeah, and mind you, chat, I'm not saying that Linkin Park, Evanescence, 3 Days Grace, My Chemical Romance, or any of those bands aren't great. They're a lot of fun. But I am seeing I'm seeing the guy in chat say they did see an Evangelion songfic using Comfortably Numb. Okay, that makes sense though, because Pink Floyd.
Okay.
Pink Floyd makes sense, especially with Evangelion.
In all things.
That actually that adds up. They're both The Wall and Evangelion are both very like introspective stories about isolation. Okay, that makes sense. But like that's the exception that proves the rule, I would say. It was mainly
Yeah.
Unfortunately there were also Nickelback songfics. That I feel was a waste of opportunity. I never of course did that. That would be ridiculous.
I don't believe you for a second.
I don't either.
No. You're right. I never wrote any songfics. Because
Mhm.
no, I actually never did, and I have a good reason why I didn't. They were usually too short.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't fit my ideas in such a short format. I tried, but it
Okay.
never worked out. It was less because now AMVs different story, but songfics no. You see,
When I was a kid, I watched lots of AMVs. I can tell you that.
there we go. Exactly. Same. I remember anime conventions used to have like the AMV section where they just had like 3 hours of AMVs, like one after the other, and you'd sit there watching them and you go, "Wow, I wish I could watch the anime these AMVs are attached to." And also, I wonder how long these would be copyright struck if they were on YouTube.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, so going back to the main central topic of this video, I think one big thing is, and this might be more of this is actually both a Charlie and Astrid question entirely. What would you say to someone if they said, "Hey, I've written a lot of fan fiction. I want to turn my fan fiction into an original story." And it's been done. We know it's been done multiple times. There are many successful books that were started as fan fiction and were reworked
Mhm.
into original fiction. So, what are some things you think have to go into that? What are some things you think the author should be wary of? We mentioned before making sure we file off the serial numbers and go further beyond that.
Mhm.
But, like, let's say, Astrid, you want to turn your Naruto fanfiction into a original book. Let's say, Charlie, you want to turn your Mass Effect story into an original book. What were some things you'd have to keep in mind when doing that yourselves? That you'd tell someone else to do as well.
I mean, I literally did this.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm asking that question directly
I
to you.
know. I said that for the audience. I literally did this. Now I don't know. Like, I guess in a way, I didn't know that's what I was doing. Because, my debut book, Inaurora's Excursion. Yes, I finally name dropped it because I forgot to earlier. Inaurora's Excursion started out as from the idea of my very original, like the old Naruto fanfiction, the old version of Tsukiya, that I had collaborated with my ex-best friend on. Not my recent ex-best friend, my very old ex-best friend. I do miss her sometimes, but that's a completely different story.
Yeah, it's a whole other discussion, I think.
Mess. But the original Naruto story involved going into the past, and that's the big thing that I kept with Inaurora's excursion is that one of the biggest things that I had to do to make Inaurora's excursion separate from my Naruto fan fiction, and especially separate from Naruto itself, world building, because you have to world build. You have to do a lot of it, especially when you're trying to get away from the source material so that you can publish it. I do have characters that are inspired by the characters in the Naruto stories and all that, but I made they were loosely inspired, and they took on personalities of their own. Like Caden, for example, he is loosely based off of Kakashi. Now, you probably wouldn't think that, given Caden's got curly hair, he's in a wheelchair, of course, and he's just more open about his emotions than Kakashi is. Kakashi, you're lucky you can get him to laugh, at least. You're lucky if you can get him to really, really laugh. Caden, he can laugh easily. He can cry at the drop of a hat. Take away his daughter.
So to kind of go with that, you're saying you take the basis of the character and you kind of deviate them in some ways. You take them, and you kind of go in a different direction with them.
Yeah, that's what I did. Is obviously, Kakashi, Caden, two very wildly different characters, and some people would probably be surprised to know that Kakashi was the original inspiration. When I originally wrote Inaurora's Excursion, this was 2015.
Mm-hmm.
It was a few years into me writing my Naruto fan fiction before it got completely revamped in 2021. It was closer to the source material, and I'm very, very, very happy that I did not go that route. I'm very glad that I let it sit for years. Because it was closer to the source material. So Caden was more like Kakashi in a way, but now, as we've just said, that's not the case now.
Gotcha. Yeah. So
my anxiety is gotta make sure everybody knows.
No. I think you communicated that well, which is good. So the idea basically is just to make sure I'm on the same track. You take certain components, the core inspirations, the characters who these were originally in your fan fiction, and you adjust them. You make sure they're not the same character, both in terms of appearance and in terms of characterization. Is that a fair assessment to make?
Yeah.
And you make sure the world is in a different place, so you see maybe the commonalities of world building, and then you kind of shift things around a little bit. So, and mind you, this might not be what you're saying. So if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But I'm sorry.
With Inaurora's Excursion, I don't know what hints of Naruto there is left, except for the slight, cultural references. I have my main character, Inaurora, of course. She's into my world's version of Naruto. Otherwise, because of course to be completely fair, I also have my world's version of Star Trek, so Okay, I didn't need your opinion, Kat.
Everybody's a critic, huh?
Yeah, she just popped off my bed. And she was very loud about it.
Of course.
But honestly, I don't know what really even is left that makes it can make someone go, did this person write Naruto fan fiction before? because that's how much work I put into making sure it was not that close to the source material.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. Charlie, any thoughts on that as well? And not specifically with Astrid's work, but like in terms of like when trying to convert something that's fan fiction into a original fiction.
Yeah. I'm also doing this. One of my works in progress now is taken from my Mass Effect fan fiction. Astrid said a lot that was important, especially in terms of like it cannot resemble either your fan fiction or the original source. I think the best thing that someone can do when trying to kind of make this shift, taking a fanfic into original fiction, or even just generally going from being a fan fiction writer into being an original fiction writer, is to find the heart of that story. Decide what made you passionate enough about this that you wanted to write a fan fiction, and just take one or two big things. So like Astrid took the time travel and a couple aspects of characters and then severely changed those characters. For me, I'm taking not even specific people and no specific plot points, and I'm even writing in a different genre, but I'm taking relationship dynamics. So it can be extremely narrow, all the way down to the trope that you take with you to decide what it is that is making you want to do something original. But it should only be one or two things, or you're going to get caught in a trap of trying to figure out how this ended up so close to your fanfic and how this ended up so close to the original source. And they have to be completely indistinguishable. As much as I hate using it as an example, you have to look at like Twilight, 50 Shades.
Yeah, I was just going to bring it up, actually.
How different they need to be. It needs to be completely unrecognizable from the fan fiction and from the original source, or you're going to get sued. And you're going to screw up fan fiction for the rest of us. So please just don't.
Yeah, please don't ruin it for the rest of us, man.
Please don't take our fun.
Please don't.
Actually, it's funny you said that too, because one thing I was thinking of is looking at other works that were originally fan fiction first and then became original fiction. Chat has already mentioned a few examples of these. I'm going to just reference a few right now. Of course, 50 Shades of Grey went from a paranormal Twilight fan fiction to kind of BDSM. Sorry about that.
Bless you.
Sorry. BDSM erotic fiction. But then you also got stuff like Cassandra Clare's work, who is a figure of very justified controversy, to put it mildly. Have you guys read the original Shadowhunters books at all, or?
I won't read her.
I was
Smart
in
decision.
7th grade when I tried to read it. I think that was a DNF.
Yeah.
I think that might have been one of my first DNFs.
Yeah, even before knowing the controversy that she spread around her very intensely, she was always a writer who I felt was like, and this is might be a controversial statement, I think 50 Shades of Grey was more successful at diverging from its fan fiction origins than her Draco and Hermione, or Draco and Ginny, Harry, whatever, fan fiction trilogy. Because you can still feel the characters don't just have they're characters in that book where it's like obviously a Harry Potter character. Like, it's not subtle. It's not like minor. It's like very apparent that this character is that person. Like, there's a uncle-ish figure, like an older, like a friend of the parents who's also a werewolf. Like, not even like.
Yeah. There are ways that people can go that I love how different they can get. Like, one of the fandoms that has made into mainstream in a really big way is the Reylo stuff from Star Wars.
So if you look at two huge examples of that, you have the Hurricane Wars, which is fantasy, and this is my talking about these is not a reflection on how I feel about the books or the quality of the
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
I'm going to put that out there right now, or the authors. But you can look at the Hurricane Wars, which was adapted from a Raylo fic, and that's a fantasy story. And then another Raylo fic adaptation is the Love Hypothesis,
Yeah,
which was contemporary romance.
Yeah, and I feel the cover
Completely different takes.
And I feel the cover of the Love Hypothesis, especially, I think, really makes it apparent. It's like a let me get an image of this right here. If you look at the main art for the Love Hypothesis, it's I feel that kind of tells you right there. This is hang on, your faces are gone. 1 second, there you go. I feel that this right here tells you it's a Raylo fic right here.
I just like how different they are, though. You know, like these two fandom people, these two fic writers decided that they were going to take the same exact relationship, the same dynamics, and went in completely different directions about it. I really like that. 100%. I like, especially as a fanfic writer, I'm like, yeah, give me all my fandom joy. I mean, not so much Raylo, but you know, generally.
Yeah, I'm not a big Raylo shipper myself.
Yeah,
but I respect it. I respect that that's the ship you like. I don't agree with it. I think that was maybe the worst part of the last Star Wars sequel movie. I remember
you're gonna get yourself a whole new controversy here.
Oh, yeah. I find ways of getting controversy all the time. I'll be honest with you, I never understood that whole ship at all. I don't know, that's a whole other discussion. I'll save it for my next Star Wars video because people seem to love to get angry at me for those.
Invite me on, I'll talk about that all day.
Oh, 100% would love that. I mean, I will make sure to get you on that one. But no, yeah, that's a good example right there. Good. And, you know, that's the thing too with some publishing, you do find there are certain reoccurring ships that show up or ship dynamics that show up. I feel also it's kind of one author, again, another YA author who has encountered a lot of controversy for her specific views on many subjects would be Rainbow Rowell, and her writing as well, who I saw some people mention in chat as well, very famously wrote Carry On, which is a in-universe fan fiction of totally not Harry Potter. Again, Harry Potter seems to dominate this entire discussion, for better or worse. I think for worse.
Yeah, for worse.
Much for worse. But like, you see stuff like that where you see the mechanics of fan fiction writing, but also it's through the lens of Rainbow Rowell, which means has some problems.
Is it a bad thing? I'm not familiar with this author's name. Or is it a good thing?
Maybe a mixed bag. I don't know if... Again, I'm not familiar with every controversy she's found herself in, but, like, I know she has really bad Asian representation.
Ooh.
There's a lot of really messy body representation.
Ooh.
And again, it's not... What's up?
Look at the original source.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, what was the one that she wrote, Rainbow Rowell? It was Something in Park, right? That was the original novel she wrote before fanfic. Because I know the Carry On series, it's kind of like What If Harry Potter, but extremely gay.
Yeah.
But it's like, again, it's using the bones of Harry Potter. Like, it's still, you can change it as much as you want, but like it's still, the bones are still the same. And I've already extensively talked about my feelings in Harry Potter in another video. I won't repeat myself here, but rest assured I find the whole experience of the books very hollow, even before you get into J.K. Rowling's. Unfortunately, you really can't avoid that when discussing fan fiction. Like, it influenced so many, much like the Anne Rice stuff, it's had a ripple effect across all of it. And I think, I will say this, though. I would say a lot of people who started working on fan fiction for that series have since gone on to make better things. Except for the writers who are still stuck there.
Yeah.
Not saying any Cassandra Clare names, but
Mhm.
I'm just, man, this whole thing's making me feel really bitter towards certain authors. I can't imagine.
Can't imagine
I
why.
can't imagine why.
Hmm.
And again, there's several people also mention the Harry Styles fan fictions and the book After, which I
Yeah,
have.
that was like One Direction fanfic, right?
It was Harry Styles, I think,
Yeah.
specifically. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, but One Direction also has a lot of fan fiction that was made into books too. I can't speak to After's quality because I never read it. I never read After. I'm not. I get uncomfortable with real person fan fiction. That's just a thing I
Yeah.
don't like, because it makes me feel very weird. Kind of seems a little like you're especially if the person's still alive. I'm fine
Yeah.
with historical fiction of dead people. Actually, I love that. But like if it's alive and can read it, I get uncomfortable.
yeah, I'm with you on that. I
Yeah.
don't.
Which
I
is to
don't like
say, chat, please send your favorite Napoleon fan fiction right this way.
Napoleon!
The more
Of
ridiculous.
all the figures you could choose, Napoleon.
Well, I'm thinking
Okay.
Ridley Scott made a $200 million Napoleon fan fiction, and people got really upset. It broke the lore of the fandom.
Yeah, that's the other thing you have to be aware of if you are going from fanfic to original fic and you make it known what fandom you're using. Do not cross the fandom.
Yeah, no.
Pay
You
your
gotta,
respects at all times. Yeah.
gotta be very careful.
Hmm.
BTS also has a lot of fan fiction, but I feel like the versions of BTS in those fan fiction are so, like, I mean, okay, that's a whole discussion with Korean pop music and like the version of their celebrities they put out into the media that are like completely divorced from like the real people.
Yeah.
That's a whole other
I
discussion.
mean, how well do the fans ever know the real people? Like
Oh,
that's
very badly. I mean,
that's part of why it's so weird to me. Like,
yeah, like especially if it's like shipping them with like their friends, like real life friends, like that's weird. Like,
yeah.
I mean, not to
Super
be
weird.
mean about it, but that's a little disconcerting to me. It feels a little like you're kind of taking real people and like turning them into like,
Toys.
yeah, it's like, here's the thing, like I'm all for your ridiculous yaoi BL fan fictions. Go all for it. Go wild with it. But the moment it's like real people, that throws me off a little bit. Also, I'm seeing a surprising amount of support for Napoleon fan fiction in chat.
I just can't believe that's who you picked. Like off the top of your head, that was where you went.
Oda Nobunaga. But you had to go for freaking Napoleon.
Yeah, but that'd be cool if it was Oda Nobunaga, though. That's the thing. I had to go for someone who's a little underwhelming to.
A manga, I think. I remember seeing at Barnes & Noble once a few years ago. I forgot what the title fully was. So I'm sorry for anyone who's into this fandom and I completely butchered a title. I think the title was something along the lines of like a job named Oda Nobunaga or something like that.
Oh, it's not. It's not.
That's why I'm
it's not
thinking
Nobunaga's ambition, is it?
I don't know. I just remember picking it up at Barnes and Noble. Well, I mean, I didn't buy the book. I just remember holding it in my hands, going, "What?" Because I knew about him, so I'm just like, "This is weird."
There's a lot of really wild manga out there that I've never actually read personally. That I was just like, this seems wild. I don't know if I ever want to actually open this up and read it, but this looks like a trip. But again, like, and the thing also is with real people historically, that's called historical fiction. That is a genre of fiction. If you like writing real world fan fiction, then write like historical fiction. Just make sure you research it thoroughly. The same rules apply. And I do think that with fan fiction, it's a great playground to play within the confines of world building. We mentioned this before.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask this question, because we've been dancing around this one question I've had for a little while now. A lot of people who write fan fiction will sometimes write fan fiction to fix certain things they don't like in the original work. Great example of this. All of the Full Metal Alchemist fan fiction out there where Mace Hughes doesn't die. By the way, spoiler for a 25-year-old event. Mace Hughes dies in Full Metal Alchemist. I'm sorry if you heard it here first, but that's how it is. But yeah, no. So there'll be fan fiction to try to fix that by avoiding that death. Now, this is a bit of a tricky, a bit of a two-part question for both of you. If you are writing, if you're going from fan fiction to original fiction, or I'm seeing people mention Attack on Titan ending rewrites where it's not a horrible mess of an ending. Yeah, exactly, right. Or let's say any of the Marvel fan fictions where various characters don't die or where villains win. Personally, I like the villains winning ones a little more. I'm just biased. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that. Okay, well, I won't go there. I don't want to get canceled on YouTube that quickly for saying that Loki really should have won in every movie he was in by a mile. It would have been more interesting. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked.
I'm with you.
No, yeah, I know, Charlie. I know you and I are on the same page here. I'm just. Listen, Charlie. Chat's just not ready for this. They're not ready for the truth.
No.
We'll do it another time. We'll get them ready.
We'll get there. But okay, so here's the question. Some fan fiction is written for the sake of fixing certain tropes, quote unquote. But do you think when you're writing original fiction, you should have that same mentality in your work? Do you think that you should go in saying, such and such piece of work, be it a movie, game, book, whatever, they did this and I really don't like this, let me do that instead? Or do you think it might be better for the fan fiction writer to go, okay, hang on, why did this thing affect me so much? Is it because it was a frustrating trope, a frustrating decision from a writing standpoint? Or did it hurt me because it was an effective storytelling mechanic and it worked as intended? It's probably a mixed answer of both,
Yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag of both.
Because, as much as I hate that Mace Hughes dies in Full Metal Alchemist, specifically that death, that and Nicholas D. Wolfwood in Trigun. By the way, spoilers for a 25-year-old anime. Wolfwood dies. I'm sorry if you heard it here first, but it's sad. And anyway,
I will say, in my Naruto fanfiction, one of the things, this is gonna go on the theme of what the are you smoking kind of thing. But I kind of want more of Kakashi's father. So I kept that he died, however, ... I am sounding like my supervisor. I bring him back to life just in time for my main character to be born. And so he gets to help Kakashi raise her while their mom is faking her own death. Don't ask questions about that. It's a lot, but one of the things I kind of want more is more Sakamo, and I was like, I kind of want to write this character, so I did.
That's valid.
And I did it in the weirdest way I could, and there's actually right now I'm very much hyper focused on trying to get Inarora out into the world, so I'm not even really looking at my Naruto fanfiction much. The story that I'm currently on that I hope to get back to soon, Castle of Glass. I'm sorry, that is definitely a Linkin Park reference. I actually go into more details about how this happened, and it was actually kept a secret from my main character for a while because Kakashi and Sakamo were like, how do you explain this to your own child? They kind of wanted to have an explanation before telling them. Unfortunately, within 17 years, they still don't have an answer until the next story.
There you go. But yeah, that's one component right there. You know, that's one element. That's one thing you wanted to see more of in this work, and you know, you understand why you want to see more of it. And you, yeah, exactly. So, same question to Charlie too. What are your thoughts?
I think in terms of what you can learn and what you can do, both ways have their merit. Whether you are changing slash fixing things, or examining why the original choice was made. In one of my fics for Mass Effect, I didn't kill off a character who was killed in the games. And what became interesting following that is that I then had to figure out all the ripple effects of how that would go, because it wasn't the ending. It was in the middle of a game, in the middle of a series. So I had to make that work throughout the entire thing. And I think that became a really good exercise in examining why they killed him in the first place, and the impact that had on me and had on the games overall. But then in fixing it, I got to play around with changing the plot in different ways that I hadn't even initially intended to. So honestly, with this, in terms of like whether or not you should keep the thing that you fixed in your fanfic, I mean, I would say see how it plays out, experiment with it in your drafts, and if it doesn't work, figure out why they made the original move that they did, and see what move works better for you.
100%.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
And it's also a good writing exercise too.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah, totally. Okay, so we are coming a bit long in the chat, so we'll probably wrap it up next soon. But I do want to ask one question, a couple questions actually. We do want to ask. One in particular, I want to bring up. Aside from the debate in chat of whether or not Goofy from a Goofy movie is bisexual or not, I am leaning towards yes. Goofy is a goofy guy, and you know, listen, that he can get anyone he wants because he's Goofy. You know what? Give Max a second dad. That's my campaign. Of course, that being said, though, no heterosexual man would ever dress the way Goofy did in an Extremely Goofy movie. That's
true.
That's just how it is. That is bisexual fashion right there, and I will listen to no argument to the contrary. Just saying. Anyway, so that very serious statement that someone's going to take very seriously aside, there's always one person who takes that way too seriously and doesn't tell I'm only half joking.
I know.
Half joking.
A little bit.
A little bit of joke. Not all joke, but we're just being a little goofy with it, that's all. Extremely goofy. An extremely goofy bisexual awakening. There you go. For a lot of people, the Goofy movie was their bisexual awakening.
That's an interesting one.
That'd be an odd one in particular, but I'm sure for someone that's the case.
Choice, but okay.
It wasn't mine, but I'm saying for someone's it might be. No, mine was Yuri on Ice. It was much later on in life. I was very, very dumb, and closeted in my own head. But that being said, no, my question is, so one big criticism you see in mainstream writing circles is this reads like fan fiction as an insult. Obviously, I think all of us are a little biased in favor of saying, well, hang on a second, let's take a step back here. But why do you think people say it reads like fan fiction as an insult? And what are some things we think we can say maybe to deconstruct that approach, that mentality?
I mean, to counter that, if someone says that, I would just be like, well, fanfic is popular for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think, more than anything, I think it's just a really narrow-minded approach. The fanfic that two people in the same fandom write are going to be completely different. I think what people really mean when they say this reads like fanfic is like it's extremely character driven. It's very centered around the character. They usually also often mean this is super queer, which, why is that a bad thing? They mean that it has a number of tropes. And yeah, you know, now we'll see books that maybe only have one or two tropes that they center around, but people who say they don't like tropes or they don't like to see tropes in books generally just don't have a good understanding of what a trope is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally everything you've ever read has been a trope. Whether or not that, you know, more than one trope is centered in the book, that's a different conversation. They usually also mean that it's really dialogue heavy, that there's like a lot of back and forth between the characters. A lot of information is given via dialogue instead of with prose. Literally none of these things are bad. So all these people are saying is, I have learned that fanfic is a bad thing and I want a way to insult you that makes me feel like I have a reason to, so I'm going to say it reads like fanfic.
That, literally
Yeah.
that.
That right there. Yeah. That sums it up right there.
They just want to insult you, and it's like, okay, so
Yeah.
I think this is supposed to be I think this is supposed to be an insult, but I'm gonna take this as a compliment and run.
100%. Somebody says that my books read like fanfic, I'm going to be absolutely delighted. That's a wonderful compliment.
Right?
Agreed entirely with that. Yeah. And again, it's fan fiction's appeal to people for a reason, like you said. They're hitting that necessary point. And you know, the thing also is, and I'm going to go a bit of a tangent here. Before the 20th century, people used to just write additional responses to works all the time. Like, there were tons of and that was back when copyright law wasn't exactly stretched to infinity thanks to the Disney Corporation. So public domain worked a little differently. But there were tons of works in other countries even that totally revised works. Lord of the Rings, not pre-20th century, that's 20th century, but different countries have different translations of Lord of the Rings that are really just fan fiction of Lord of the Rings, or other that kind of mix Lord of the Rings with the local country's folklore to some extent. Sometimes taking some deviations in the plot. Nosferatu.
The internet is...
sorry.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
one.
Nosferatu.
The internet is...
Sorry.
Sorry. The internet is partially responsible for the change because part of the reason the fanfic laws are what they are is because, you know, let's just say somebody at BioWare, which makes Mass Effect, reads my fanfiction, takes something that I did in my fanfiction, puts it in the game, and I know that they read it, I can turn around and go after BioWare. So BioWare has to say, all of these companies, these media companies have to say, you can't recreate our works, you can't do these things because we need to be able to create new material, and if you are also creating new material that you can profit off of, then we are in competition. So that's a big aspect of this.
Yeah.
100%. Now, Charlie, this is a question I know the answer to already before you're asking, but has anyone in BioWare or involved with Mass Effect ever acknowledged your fan fiction or responded to it in any capacity?
You never told me you were going to make me blush. This is rude.
I try.
Yeah, I mean, oh my god, I can't believe it, but a number of former BioWare employees now have read my fanfic and really enjoyed it. My fanfic has actually led to me getting employment as a TTRPG writer and editor. So, like, fanfic does good things, folks. Write your fanfic, market your fanfic, be proud of your fanfic. It's definitely taken me in professional places that I was unprepared for.
Well, Charlie, you should know by now, I will always praise my friends at any given chance and make them embarrassed.
How dare you?
How dare I shower my friends with affection and show people how talented they are?
Oh, but you won't accept it when we shower you in affection.
No, that's
Yeah,
not
really.
allowed. No, it's not allowed. I'm not.
It's
Nothing,
amazing.
I have not done anything to merit that whatsoever. You have all done incredible
Oh.
things, and you deserve all the praise from the world for that. One thing I do
Hey,
want to
Charlie,
make.
wanna come to New Jersey with me real quick? Let's go beat up Ant with love.
Yeah.
I will not
I'll be there in 3
oppose.
days.
I will not oppose that. Just give me enough time to cook for you guys, because I like to at least have food available for guests if they show up. Just
I live on the other side of the country. You have time.
okay, good. I'll get some
I was
ingredients.
closer. I'm in Virginia.
Well, okay. Well, Astrid can beat me up first. We'll have to wait for you, Charlie. We'll get that set up. Anyway, all joking aside, and by joking I mean I'm hoping you're joking, because no, you're not gonna joking. You're actually calling you to beat me up. Okay, I have to prepare for that. Anyway, but no, one thing I do want to bring up too, because we mentioned creators. Obviously, Charlie, your experience with former Bioware employees is very positive. A lot of people though are not. A lot of authors aren't really pro fan fiction. You mentioned the possible legal problem, like if they read it and copied it, and then you could sue. Is there any other reason you think someone might be upset with? Oh, and I do want to, before I forget this, I saw in the chat. Yes, Sherlock Holmes is a great example of a work that has lived by its fan fiction more than probably any
Absolutely.
other franchise in history.
Yes.
Yeah.
I literally, okay, this might be a little esoteric, but there is I have a book up there. It is a officially licensed Sherlock Holmes Hellraiser crossover fan fiction.
That's amazing.
And it's
That's
written,
amazing.
and it's written by the actress who played one of the Cenobites, I think in Hellraiser 2. I think she was the author of it. I'm drawing a
That's
blank
so
on her
cool.
name, but it's published. It was bought it in Barnes and Noble. It's not like a fan fiction on AO3. It's like a licensed
Yeah.
by the company, and that would not exist if Sherlock Holmes fan fiction wasn't so massively prevalent, because
Yeah.
that follows in the same tradition of Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula, Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper, which itself is a small subgenre of Sherlock Holmes stories. Yeah. Anyway, so the question ultimately comes down to this: why would an author not want fan fiction written about their work? And is it really, at a certain point, is it up to the fan fiction? Is it up to the author to enforce that, or do they kind of surrender a little bit of authorship to the fans at a certain point after publication of their work?
I mean, for me, the only reason I would oppose fan fiction of my work, now I'm not saying I don't want fan fiction of my work. I would be honestly honored. But I was discussing this with my partner a couple weeks ago. One of the things that I'm kind of scared about with someone writing a fan fiction of my books is I'm afraid of like getting my characters being whitewashed or straight washed or even Abell washed, because one of the biggest one is I'm afraid someone's going to take Caden out of his wheelchair and write him as someone who without chronic pain, and I know it's probably going to end up happening. I'm not going to try and stop it. But I do have that concern of I don't want that to happen, because I specifically wrote him in a wheelchair for a reason. I wrote most of my characters not white except for the main cast for a reason.
Yeah.
Made everybody queer for a reason.
Wait, it wasn't accidental?
Good question.
No, that was sarcasm. I was
No,
joking with you.
I was trying to come up with a retort to it, and I completely failed.
It's all good. It's all good. But no, yeah, and you're right. That is a factor. I remember reading, and I referenced this with another creator who for chat. I think I mentioned this to Krim one time when we were talking about Evangelion in our 5-hour Evangelion stream, which is a thing I very eagerly did. I once read a fan fiction. This was years ago, back when I was like really deep into Evangelion fan fiction fandom, where the character Karu, for those who don't know, Karu is a character of ambiguous sexuality. It's very heavily implied he has romantic feelings to the male lead Shinji, but it's ambiguous. It's never confirmed in canon, but if you watch it, you know, you can figure it out. This fanfiction turned Karu into a girl because I guess the author was too afraid of having a guy have potentially romantic feelings, and more romantic than sexual, much more romantic than sexual, I think. And yeah, so fanfiction did just that. They took a character who was ambiguously queer and made them straighter, basically just to avoid writing a queer relationship.
That's a choice.
That is a choice. A very distinct one, considering Karu is one of the more famous, not straight anime characters in anime history. But again, the thing there becomes, and this is where it gets really messy. On one hand, I think that's ethically skeezy. I don't like that. But should we say they can't do that? And that's where the tough question comes in, you know? Because
like, I feel like you can't tell them no.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen either which way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure everyone who had Anne Rice fanfiction, they stored it somewhere safe.
Yeah.
Where they couldn't get in trouble. I don't know, because obviously I'm too young for that one. But I imagine they still wrote Anne Rice fanfic.
Yeah, I would say to an extent, though a lot of them stopped because they were afraid of Anne Rice.
Oh yeah, well, no, I'm not saying
personally coming to their house and like throwing like a law like and you know, a summons to the court at their helm. But like,
Yeah.
I think the question also becomes: should they even have written something that straight washes a character at all? Is it even?
I mean, ethically, no.
Yeah, no.
Nobody should be writing things like that. But I would say my answer here is the same with everything else, that you can't stop people from saying things or writing things, but they also can't expect not to have.
Like, I just saw someone did what to Briarlight?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Someone took her and cured. No,
in chat, someone said that. Oh,
chat. I grew up on Warriors. That was something I did as a child. I have feelings about that.
I have no opinions on Warrior Cat, so I can't speak to the specifics there. But is Briar Cat a disabled character in the Warrior Cat?
Briarlight is
Briarlight. I'm sorry.
Well, Briarlight is disabled. I forgot exactly what her disability was. Then there's like a couple of disabled characters in Warriors and a lot of the fandom does agree that the authors did do poorly representing disabled characters. Because they took characters like Jay Feather, who's blind, and he wanted to be a fighter. He wanted to be a warrior. Instead, they're like, no, you have to be a medicine cat because you won't be able to see. You have other senses. You have other senses. So that's one I have a feeling about. There was Cinder Heart also had something similar happen because she got into an accident and her leg was screwed up, and once again the Errands said, nah, you're gonna be a medicine cat, you can't fight like that. And like, and as a kid, that's something you notice as a kid as much, but as an adult I have very big feelings about this.
Lovely.
Oh yeah, the deaf kit that got killed. The little kitten, a baby, got killed because I don't remember. I think a bird took it.
Not that I never saw this.
Yeah, this is a.
I'm glad y'all didn't see this. As a kid, it was a what the moment
Yeah, what was
But
I
as an
reading?
adult,
when-
I'm just like, y'all took this in a direction you shouldn't have.
Look, I wish I could say I was reading a better book when I was reading Maximum Ride when those books were coming out, which is its own.
Wow.
Which I listen. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying that's what I was reading instead.
Choices were made.
I know. What were you, Charlie? What were you reading that time? Something probably good, I imagine.
I have no idea. I would read anything I could get my hands on.
This is also
I
true.
still feel that way.
Also-
Yeah.
I feel like you're silently judging our book choices, Charlie. Astrid and I will go over here with the warrior cats and the and the weird winged James Patterson books that he definitely did not write because James Patterson does
He
not.
definitely
write
did not write them.
Definitely did not.
Yeah, I have a hard time imagining James Patterson writing anything involving teenagers at all. Like authentically, he writes.
Yeah.
Sorry, he writes 1,700 books a year. I'm sure he's written all of them.
I go into a store and I see James Patterson. I'm confused.
Well, I mean, he's a company name. It's like John Grisham. Like John Grisham has not
Yeah.
written even an eighth of John Grisham's books.
Yeah, it's a brand more than an author at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
at this point.
Now-
Which, you know,
Yeah.
good for him.
Hey, yeah,
Make
he's
that money.
he's
Okay.
making that money. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't get mad at any author for making money. If you can make it, go for it. It's a tough industry. But that doesn't mean I have to say you're a good writer. But you could be a successful businessman, which is a totally different field of success.
Yeah.
Separate from the craft of writing. Or Animorphs, I guess,
I
too.
cut you off though, Charlie. I saw that comment about Warriors. I'm like, I have feelings. I need to get this out.
It's all good.
No, it's actually was kind of part of my big point is like people can write whatever they want, people can do fanfic in terrible and unethical ways, and then they also have to deal with the ramifications of that. So like while I am someone who will brawl with an author who goes after a reviewer, someone who reviews your books, you get absolutely no say on
Yeah.
how they
Mhm.
review it. If someone is writing a fan fiction of your story and they're doing something unethical, drag them. Like, I'm putting out a book next year. One of the main characters is in a wheelchair and is transgender, and I am also both of those things. If either of those things gets washed in a fanfic that happens to come across my desk that I happen to see, I'm going to go to the mat with the person who wrote that. That's
feel
not a review. That's a story that you chose to write based on my story. It's not a review. It's something else that you created. You're not a reader. You're a writer, and all of us have to face the ramifications of what we choose to write.
I would probably go feral if someone took Caden out of his wheelchair. I mean, I'm not a wheelchair user, but like I'm protective of my characters. And also, Aurora does come out as non-binary, and they are also a arrow ace as well. If any of those things get erased, I will definitely also go feral.
There you go.
Right. So the question, can we stop people from writing these things? No, but we can respond to it.
Yeah, we can respond.
100% agree with that. As is, if you create a world and someone misrepresents that in fan fiction, yeah, you're entirely within. I'm all for freedom of expression myself. I feel personally, with my works, I have a loose leash for experimentation of authorship. But like, with my writing, when it finally gets published, Charlie, you will get that draft sooner than later. It's been dragging my feet on it. If they were to say do something that was deeply unethical with my work, I would criticize it. Because at that point, it's no longer a review, it's no longer engagement, it is a separate work that itself is worth reviewing and responding to. I wouldn't say tell AO3 to, I keep saying fanfiction.net. I wouldn't say AO3 to like say take it off the site. That's a different story. You're allowed to publish it.
Wouldn't do that.
But you're
Absolutely.
also, but I'm equally allowed to criticize it because it's its own separate work that's derivative of my own.
Yeah.
I would never go
Go
full
wild until you're writing until you're crossing ethical lines. Go nuts. Like,
Mhm.
change the whole genre of what I wrote. Change relationships between my characters. Cool. I'll probably love it. Just
Mhm.
because you took the time to read my book and then write fanfic, and I am honored.
Real.
But yeah, once the ethical lines get crossed, then
Yeah.
Exactly. That being said, though, I'm going to read a few questions in chat real quick that I'm seeing, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up with some final thoughts right after that. I'm going to skim through. Okay. So a question here I'm seeing is a discussion on what. Okay, this might be a little TMI. If it is, let me know. What is the horniest fanfiction community? I think it's a little TMI.
like the horniest fandom.
Yeah, that's what that's what it looks like. They're kind of discussing in chat.
Oh.
I feel
Well,
like
it might be a little.
that might be a little too
Maybe.
TMI.
I'm really proud that mine is very horny.
There
I'll
we
say
go.
that.
Mass Effect. Yeah,
I'm not the least bit ashamed of that.
I'd say Mass Effect and Baldur's Gate are up there. I'd say in terms.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Any
say
like
that.
any like mature RPG series, I think as. And that's all
Yeah.
else. And because they have primarily adult characters, you can like
do it.
really go into it.
Yes, we can.
And you got a lot of adults writing it, which means that they're a little more. They bring the maturity of adulthood to it, and so look, different angle. I won't get any more explicit than that because I feel that question can lead to dark territory otherwise. Is there any Nicolas Cage fan fiction? Probably.
Why?
There should be more.
First of all, Rule 34 of the internet applies to fan fiction too. There is fanfic of everything. I'm gonna look this up
Yeah. Oh god, you look up Nicolas Cage fan fiction.
immediately. Ugh.
This is now in your search history, Charlie.
Oh no.
I'm an author. You can't hurt my.
Oh,
There
there
is
you
a
go.
whole. Yep. There's Nicolas Cage works on AO3. There are 143
There you go.
Nicolas Cage works.
There you go.
That's wild. Absolutely wild.
I love that.
I love fanfic.
Do you ever you know what I would love to see actually? This might be a little too niche, but y'all ever play the game Dead by Daylight?
Yes.
Okay, so Nicolas Cage is a playable character in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
What
I
I'm
wonder
wondering
how many
is,
are.
Familiar. Was that turned into a meme? Because I feel like I remember something about this.
it probably was. Now I'm wondering if Nicolas Cage is shipped in the Dead by Daylight fandom because they're another. Actually, Charlie, this is a fandom that might be a rabbit hole for you because it's all monsters.
Oh, I've read a lot of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Uh-huh.
There you go. I knew it would be. I shouldn't have
Yeah.
even bothered asking. I should have figured that already.
Yeah.
Like it's a
I'm
cast of
wondering how many
monsters
these-
and a crossover.
Yeah.
It's a cast of monsters and a crossover haven. Like
So it looks like the majority of the Nick Cage fanfic is from Dead by Daylight.
oh my
Um,
goodness, yes.
Of course.
Good.
But
Good. I'm glad.
the second one that comes up involves Barack Obama and Vladimir Putin. So I'm gonna close that window. I'm not ready for that tonight.
Okay.
I'm not ready.
All right.
It's a choice.
That is.
Whoever wrote it, that's a choice.
It's not. It's almost like a rare pair. I would say that doesn't even make any.
Oh, I would assume it's a rare pair. Yeah.
But like even as like gag fan fiction, that wouldn't be the first person I would. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. Now I'm looking for a writer. Now I'm reading it like a writer. Apparently.
Oh boy.
I'm seeing a lot of people talk about. Okay, I'm skimming through a few questions here. Animorphs I'm seeing mentioned. Alphas. Yeah, I think we covered most of the big questions in discussion. I kind of was keeping an eye on chat to organically weave it in.
I have the mannerisms of a cosplayer.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, team. It's the tism.
There we go. I love it. I am seeing a few people mention adaptations that did some whitewashing. I saw some folks mention Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea books, and both adaptations of those whitewashing basically the entire cast. I'd say the Ghibli film slightly less so, but still had whitewashing in it pretty extensively.
Yeah.
But still, it's no comparison to the sci-fi miniseries that like really whitewashed the entire Like you can make
Yeah.
an argument in Japan. Oh, they think this is dark skinned. It isn't, but like you can still make that argument that okay, they thought this was kind of rep maybe. Not the case with the American sci-fi show where the only person of color is Danny Glover. I almost said Donald Glover there and mix it up, but that's not really. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I guess final thoughts on fanfiction before we wrap things up. So. If let's say anyone here is interested in either writing fan fiction or writing original fiction, what is a parting word of advice you would give them, just off the cuff?
World build.
World build? Oh yeah.
World building.
Charlie, any final parting thoughts?
Don't be afraid to experiment with
Definitely.
hints, with point of view, with literally everything. Play around, experiment, go nuts.
Gotcha.
Have fun.
Yeah. So, Astrid and Charlie, want to plug yourselves? Plug your work? Plug your anything at all? Any upcoming projects? Any where people can find you if they want to hear more of your thoughts?
Like in the chats or something, or in the chat, or just like verbally. I don't know.
Verbally.
Verbally.
Just a chance just to throw everything out there in like 2 or 3 minutes.
If you like Naruto fanfiction and don't mind that it's written with original characters with the main cast also, I would I'm Seraph RDM on AO3. I write specifically like it should be Tsuki's Tsukiya's story or Tsukiya Monogatari. I don't remember which one I did. As I said in the beginning, I do have a book coming out, Inaurora's Excursion, paperback and ebook. I will be eventually working on an audiobook for audiobook readers. I'm going to be publishing under the name Seraph Abell. So, if you like, I will say though, with my Naruto fanfiction, I've had friends who are not into Naruto at all like my story. So if that is any interest to people, I do that.
Now, before I continue with Charlie with your plugs, we did get a super chat just now from Myeonyan, which I think actually is a really good question, and I feel like I'm pulling you back in after final thoughts, but it's a good question. To what extent, and thank you for the super chat, Myeonyan, by the way. To what extent is create a character games like the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games fanfiction, as you are in charge of your OC's choices?
Me, who plays Final Fantasy 14, it's kind of fanfiction to an extent. I'm going to type something into chat.
Go for it.
Because someone is trying to spell and I'm terrible at spelling out loud.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yes, spell your name out in chat and everything. And everything's gonna be in the description. By the way, if you want to send me any links, I can add to the description after the fact. Let me know. But yeah, Charlie, any thoughts on that as well?
I love that question. I don't think I would have thought about it this way before. I just think of them as RPGs. But I mean, you're playing in the sandbox of the bigger story, which is fan fiction. So
yeah,
I guess in a way they are, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of it that way, and then as soon as I read that, I'm like, that's valid.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
100%, because it is your story. You're taking a sandbox. And by that extent, games like, say, Baldur's Gate, or by greater extension, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
D&D. That's basically, you're basically taking, because with D&D with TTRPGs it gets a little complicated because you're basically taking someone else's sandbox and playing with it. But the DM, the players, they take it in different directions all they want. So that's that's excellent question.
That is fanfic. Yeah, that's a really good question. I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
So we are still wrapping up though. So Charlie, any last things you want to plug before we close up shop for the day?
Oh, I hate talking about myself. You can, if for some reason you want to read my fanfic, listen, there's warnings in there that if you get 100,000 words in and you haven't slept, you need to go get some rest and drink some water. So bring snacks with you if you're going to read it. On AO3, I'm a gay cabbage.
Yeah,
My
that works.
website,
That fits.
right? It fits. My website, if you want any of my links for editing service or Patreon or whatever, is cknightrights.com. Knight like the medieval soldier, not like nighttime. I'm also at cknightrights on all socials. So come find me, say hi.
Indeed. I can vouch for Charlie. They are a fantastic editor, and a really cool person as well. And I can vouch for Astrid too. You're pretty awesome as well. I haven't read you in book yet, but I can vouch that you're an awesome person. Also, Fire Dragon X, thank you for joining as a member, as a reader, as a member of. And again, just a reminder that if you join as a member for YouTube or Patreon, you can get access to Discord and all that good stuff as well. That's a spiel I gotta say every time it happens because I am autistic and have to go through patterns whenever I see something occur. Anyway, but that being said, though, thank you so much for joining us. You're both welcome back whenever you want. I know Charlie, this is your second time coming here, so you're always welcome back for a third. And Astrid, you're always welcome back for another time as well. No, and I will embarrass you every time by giving you an opportunity to share your talents with the world because you have great, immense talent.
Oh boy.
If you're still watching this, me praising my friends up until this point, thank you so much for sticking with us this whole time. I think this was a very informative discussion, and I hope you take away something that can help you grow as a writer, or even better, even if you're not a writer yourself, gain an appreciation for the art form itself in all of its ways it manifests. So, from all of us to you, have a great night, and if you have a chance, I think Krim is doing a stream. Jump on his stream. Annoy him. Tell him in bulk that I sent you there just to harass him. All right? Take care, everyone. Have a good night, all right? Bye-bye.